Welcome to this week's Borders Rugby in Focus, and we've come down to Poynder Park in Kelso, of course, the home of Kelso Rugby Club, and we're joined by Director of Rugby Neil Hinnigan, Bruce McNeil, the player coach, and of course, as usual, Dale Clancy with us as well. And we'll start with you, Neil, because the National won, of course, you're doing quite well at the moment, 3 wins out of 4. You had Stirling Wolves here at the weekend, and a nice 26-18 win. How did that go?
Yeah, it was good to get the win, Stu, first and foremost. And overall, I think the players were probably slightly disappointed with their performance. But as I say, first and foremost, it was to get the win, and we achieved that. We're pretty comfortable in the game. Stirling did score in the last play, which kind of closed the gap to 8 points. But we were a little bit disappointed with it, but ultimately pleased to get the win. And move forward.
It's a fairly new look Kelso this season, fair to say. Also some familiar names like Murray Hastie still in there, and obviously Andy Tate, who just goes on forever. But it's a very different Kelso side in the way they're playing. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'd say that. I've been away for, obviously been back since pre-pandemic, but I've been away for about 4 or 5 years, and there's been a few changes in that time anyways. They've been a wee bit unsettled over the few years in that Kelso, so we want to really get back to being a settled club, and obviously that rubs off on the players as well, and we're trying to get them to start at a certain point and reach certain goals, and we've certainly started decent. We had a good pre-season. We've got a fairly wide squad. I mean, we've got a few numbers there, and we have what we are trying to develop anyways is a culture change in the club, and it's early days, but the players have actually really bought into that so far. I would say that for me anyways, from my point of view, it might be different for the coaches because they're analysing it from a pure rugby point of view, but for me the culture change has been a real highlight so far for me.
Bruce, you're one of the new faces, of course, who are here now at Kelso, and this is your first coaching role, so why did you choose Kelso?
It kind of seemed at the natural choice. I had a few opportunities to come here a few years earlier, and it didn't feel right. I was enjoying my time at Hoyk, and I didn't really feel myself ready to step back from playing as much, and the opportunity came up here for player coach, and you never know how you're going to be as a coach, but I thought I love rugby and I'm passionate about it, and Kelso seemed the perfect fit at the time, and I'm certainly glad that I've decided to come here and try out coaching. What's the best part of it for you? Winning. The pleasing thing for me and Kev is when we put things into practice on a Saturday from what we do at training on a Tuesday, these boys work incredibly hard every single week. Whatever me and Kev ask them to do, they do it. It's pleasing when we see that on a Saturday, and what we're asking them to do is we're not looking to reinvent the wheel, just do the basics right and put a bit of pride back into the jersey, and we've done that so far. That's never been an issue. Work rate, want, heart, passion, all that's a given at this club now, so it's just taking it to the next level and just being slightly more accurate in a few areas of our game. But I believe if any club can work on that, it's the boys down here. They're all willing to learn, they all want to learn, they're all asking questions, and they're asking me and Kev the right questions, and they're putting us under, making us think what we need to bring to training on a Tuesday and a Thursday night, which is good. And it's shown dividends in the first 3 or 4 games of the season. And what is it that you're bringing to the role, do you think? I'm pretty passionate about rugby, and I like to bring that out, especially in the Borders, having played here for so many years, and I know what local derbies are like, and I know what it means to clubs, the history and what it is. So I like to think, I bring a bit of that, and also my knowledge of, what needs to be done, how you need to prepare yourself for a game on Saturday, and what's expected of players on and off the field, sort of thing. And nobody's perfect, and me and Kev, we've got a lot to work on, kind of early days in our coaching career and whatnot, and we're listening to the players as well, getting feedback off them, and trying to let the players have as much feedback and information in training, and let them lead it as much as they can, because ultimately it's the guys that's on the park that have to problem solve. So if we can let them do as much as the training and whatnot, we can hopefully problem solve on the pitch as the game kind of pans out.
Well, let's bring in Dale for the first time for the programme today. And you've played many times for Peebles against Kelso. You've had a few matches here at Poynder Park. And looking from the outside in with regards to Kelso, you've tended in the past to look at Kelso and think, well, they're a team in the bottom half of the league, always scraping to avoid relegation at the end of it, and it's usually because it's very much a farming community, and we see a lot of players not available, and it goes right down to the wire. So it's a nice, pleasant change to see them in number 2 position at the moment.
I think it's a real nice change. When I was playing, there was a few occasions when Kelso were at the bottom of a league and they had a late surge to stave off relegation, and I think, albeit out with my playing days, it's slightly different now. I've not been playing for a while, and for a while I've been commentating on games at Kelso or watching Kelso, and I feel what Neil and Bruce are saying is pretty bang on. There was almost a lack of culture, there was a lack of direction, I feel, especially when you were watching them play. It was almost just like it was a club just kind of struggling to stay afloat in terms of keeping its identity. The brand of rugby was maybe not the most attractive to watch. But when watching the Gala Kelso game last week and seeing the results come in, seeing the type of personnel that they've got as well, it was so refreshing to see them. They were really attractive to watch, and I think they're a team definitely on the up. I think with Bruce coming in, gone are the days when you'd get a really old coach in, an old figurehead who crack the whip and hit you with a stick to get low at a ruck, and he brings something current. He's very experienced, a very good player in his own right as well, bringing that still on the pitch, but just bringing a little bit of modern culture to Kelso. And Neil's got vast experience. Kelso is his club, but he's obviously been away and helped at Heriots as well, and his work with the Samurai. They've got abundance of experience to lead a group of very young, talented players. We talk about players like Dwain Patterson, Frankie Robson's not young by any means in terms of where he is in the club, but he's an excellent player as well. And these are the sort of players that will drive you on. So they seem to have a real recipe to really push on in National Rugby.
Well, let's have a look at National 1 as Kelso are in there, so we'll start there. Melrose, of course, sitting at the top quite nicely. 4 games played, 4 wins, and a huge game at Watsonians, winning by 80 points to 21. Not many teams will have done that before, if any.
No, Watsonians might have been lucky to score that much at the Meyer side, but it's certainly a big win, and I think Melrose have put down a real big marker there. It's good when you look at the league. Apart from Ayr in there, the other ones are Gala and Kelso at the top of that league, and it's just great to see all the Borders teams pushing and being really competitive. But it's a huge win for Melrose. I mean, we were speaking about it last week. We were thinking that Melrose would be really trying to push on and build on a bit of momentum that they've set in the early season.
And Gala winning, of course, again, and also in the capital against Heriots.
Yeah, a really good win for them as well, especially off the back of their win against Kelso the week before. I think they made hard work of it, but they're certainly, we've said it before, winning brings confidence, you get momentum, and they've pushed on. And it's just, again, that I think it's obviously the other side. You'll obviously push on to Kelso, but Gala building the momentum off a win, it just seems to roll on, whereas Kelso came off a defeat the week before and are able to just get back on the horse and keep the pressure up on the top table.
Now, one of the matches we were all looking forward to last week was Ayr against Biggar. It was called off because of front row issues in the Biggar camp there. Now, obviously, that game is going to be rescheduled. Quite a lot of talk on social media, as you would expect, because the women don't have that luxury. We've seen it down here at Kelso Ladies. They couldn't produce a front row for 2 matches, and immediately it's a 28-0 result against them, and no chance of that game being played. So one rule for one rule for the other. But what's your own kind of thoughts on the front row situation?
Yeah, I think over the last, maybe decade, I think the abundance of front row has diminished like drastically for all clubs. I think they're like gold dust. There's often really good hookers coming up that can chuck a ball into a line out and then they get moved across because there's just a lack of numbers, and it kind of stops them developing as well. But if you've only got 5 front row, they're ready to go, and a couple of them contract COVID, then you're going to be toiling. It just shows the level of player that we have now. Other positions though are sometimes quite easy to fill. Especially in the backs. There's wingers and fullbacks that can fit in at scrum half. The 10 can move out and a 9 can play 10. Front row is very, very specialist. So that's part of the reason why there's not a lot of them players kicking about. But it's just going to be one of those things in Scottish rugby until it levels out, or they come up with a plan to try and produce these sorts of players. It's going to be a problem that will just keep appearing.
Well, Neil, there's only so many standby dates, of course, around at the moment, and we seem to be getting through them pretty quickly already. What's your own thoughts on the front row debate on this? Because you've been affected, haven't you? Obviously, Terry Logan got a 2-week ban or 2-match ban for a double yellow card, and that put him out of the equation. It means, I suppose, you've got to plunder your second 15, and then they have an issue about even getting on the park the next week.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ayr obviously had their game last week off against Biggar, and we're actually heading here this weekend, and again, our main tight head's not available through suspension. Actually, when I seen the announcement around the situation with Biggar, it was late Friday afternoon until we heard about Terry, so we had to reshuffle late as well, and it just coincided looking at that, and I thought, they're handing out bans for 2 yellows, 2 really, nothing yellows, and we're losing front row players, and a game in our league's been called off for no front row. So it's we need to have a bit of compassion around these sort of issues as well, because clubs are struggling for front row. Every club is struggling for front row, believe me. You can even look at the Super 6 situation. They're having to bring players in, emergency cover all the time. Heriots lost Stuart Cessford for the whole season, and they've really toiled without him. So that's one man, but because he's a tight head prop, you start to struggle. Not just an example, if you're trying to play at a certain level or a certain performance every week, if you're missing one player in the front row, it can make a big difference. So for me, the whole issue around it, I think going lower down the leagues or second team rugby, they have to come up with a better solution, because guys need to play rugby. I think in the top, national leagues, i.e. National 1, 2, 3 or your Premiership and that, there has to be a one rule for everyone. In the past, I mean, that's never been known to cancel a game and reschedule. I presume Ayr agreed to it, which is fine. If both teams are agreeing, then I don't really see a problem with it. But other teams might not be as forgiving, and that's what it's been in the past. I've had a few text messages flying around just asking my thoughts on that already, just because in the past at Kelso, we've went to places where we've actually had to take guys, probably, that weren't really capable of playing that standard of rugby, but if you didn't do that, you lost the points. So the pressure was really on you, and really that was, it was a shame as well, but that was the situation we were in, and that was 6-7 years ago. And I remember it coming up then that eventually this will come back to bite us, and we will be in this situation. And now we're in National 1, the second highest league in Scottish rugby, and the team's not fulfilling a fixture because they have a lack of front row. So it's a serious issue.
Now, I think it's a 28-page document, the competition rules, and I think I was glazing over after page 2. But when it comes to the front row, etc., and cancelling games or postponing games, etc., I think there's also the possibility of being docked points as well. Am I right in saying that?
I think I could be wrong here, Stuart, but we certainly had an issue with this a few years ago, as I say, and I'm sure it was a deduction of 2 points plus you lost the game. So you were a game down plus minus, and minus 2 points in your league total. So therefore it was a big deterrent not to call off the game. So if you were in a relegation battle, which Dale's already said, I'm only talking about Kelso at this point, I'm going to talk about our clubs, but they at that time, we were in a relegation battle, So it was better for us to take a hiding than lose 2 points.
And we saw that happen, didn't we, at Raeburn Place, 85-0 or something. You basically went with a B-string team and got hammered, but at least it saved you being docked points.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I mean, it then becomes a product for your other players. It's not very attractive for maintaining players in the game or encouraging players in the game if you're under that kind of pressure. So, but as a club, it's your responsibility to make sure as well. If you're at a certain level, you do have to have a contingency plan, if you will, and try that. But you do ultimately get to a position where if you get a horrendous luck with injuries, or there's a wedding or 2 weddings in the same day. I've been in that situation as well. We went to Mar once and we had 2 weddings from the club, and our whole front row was out. And that's just the way it is sometimes. So there can be a forgiven day here or there on it, but you have to take a lot of responsibility if you're playing at a certain level to cover your front row as best you can.
Well, let's jump into the Fosrock Super 6. We started obviously in National 1 for obvious reasons, but that was an extraordinary match at the Green Yards on last Friday night. Southern Knights scored 21 points in 3 minutes, 3 converted tries. They went from being 29-21 down and going away out of this with nothing, with 3 minutes to go, ended up with 5 points. Heriots went back to Golden Acre with just the 1 point. But what an extraordinary finish.
Yeah, a great finish. I think it's probably been one of the games of the Super 6 so far. It was a really exciting end to the game. Heriots in a position where they could have won, and then just let it, maybe carelessly. Me and Neil were speaking to us off air, talking about how needless it was really for Heriots to lose that game, just lost control. And then the Southern Knights, it's pulled away, but I think it's probably a fair reflection on where they are in the league. Southern Knights drawn 1, lost 1, and Heriots second bottom as well as Super 6. It's a reflection of where both teams are at the moment, and I think it probably on paper the result that came out maybe shows what the little gap at the moment that's between those, because it strengthens the Southern Knights' grip on this first second final that's going to be in the Super 6 in a few weeks' time.
Well, we've seen the rolling ball to good effect from all the teams, but Southern Knights have made it a bit of a speciality. 5 penalty tries.
I was going to say that's one of their top try scorers, which is a bit of a rarity.
It is the top try scorer.
And then Russell Anderson's not far away as well with and
Fraser Rennick.
Yeah, with the tries that they've got. But it's one of those things that rugby is always a difficult sport, and these guys will know better than me. But trying to unlock a defence and trying to figure out the best way to attack teams. If you've got a weapon such as what the Southern Knights do up front, then you're going to utilise it, and it might not be the greatest spectacle for the neutral, although the game at the weekend was. You're going to use it. You're going to use the rolling maul. You're going to try and strangle them in the scrum, the mauls. You're going to keep it tight, and the Southern Knights have a really good, depth and squad in the forwards, and they're using it to good effect.
Well, it was a good week for the Borders teams in all. I mean, 7 of them played. Obviously, Selkirk and Curry was off because of COVID in the camp in Selkirk. But Hawick were actually the only team to lose from the Borders in the top flight out of the Big 8, effectively. And that means the Bill McLaren Shield goes to Edinburgh Accies at Raeburn Place. Yeah,
I think Hawick are perhaps... I think they maybe had a bit of a false dawn at the start with their win over Curry. I think looking at the squad, it's got a lot of good players, but a lot of players that are maybe a bit inexperienced at the level that they're at. Because Hawick are a team that I think with the conversation that I have with a few people is they're gunning to be one of the big dogs. Obviously they are the perhaps on paper the strongest team left in Borders Rugby, and they're wanting to be at the top of the Premiership. They want to be competing for that league, but I think their squad at the moment is maybe just a little bit weak to try and compete with that. And I think Edinburgh Accies, I think we did predict last week that Edinburgh Accies would start favourites in that game, and they did win, because again, Edinburgh Accies are one of those teams that have missed out on all this Super 6 and all this restructuring of the club, and they're going from strength to strength and putting in some good performances. So you need to go up there, you need to beat these teams if you want to win the Premiership, and they'll be gutted to not only lose the Bill McLaren Shield, but I think they'll be gutted just to lose that game overall.
Jed Forrest went up to Aberdeen. It was the basement battle, as it was termed, and they leaked 39 points. But the good news, they got 56, and they went with a very young squad as well. So that's got to be a good boost for the club.
usually a young squad means they're filled with youngs, but they,
yes, that's true.
I think we did say before that it needs to be. It was a game that they needed to win if they wanted to, keep their status in the Premiership. They're the games that you need to keep those teams just down below you. You need to knock them when they're down. And yeah, they leaked a lot of points, but they've scored a lot of points. And if they're going to spend the rest of their season outscoring the opposition, then so be it. If they're going to leak points, they need to score them. But they've done it at the weekend, but they'll be hoping to try and build and get a little bit of momentum and claw their way back up the table and get away from the relegation battle, because it's never really fun for any player. The table maybe at the moment doesn't give you too much of an insight of how it's going to be. I think it's still, with COVID, I think it's going to take a few games before we see who's the kind of runners and riders are in the Premiership and in the national leagues. So it's going to be a long process to see where everybody's going to be sitting at the end. But I think Selkirk will be disappointed that they never got the game fulfilled. I know they were struggling with players as well, so it gives them a better crack maybe when Curry do come to Philippock in a rescheduled game. But it's still going to take a few weeks for that league to settle, but certainly Mar getting off to a good start and pushing things on.
Well, of course, that's the second Selkirk game that we were due to have a commentary at, and it's been wiped out. But it did mean that, of course, we went to National 2, went to the Guides and Peebles against Newton Stuart, and Newton Stuart undefeated after their first 3 games, and what a cracking match it was.
Yeah, I was in Peebles, but unfortunately I wasn't at the game at the weekend. But watching the highlights back, it was a typical nice game of rugby at that level. I think when you do go down the leagues a little bit more, the games are a little bit more open, a little bit more attacking. There's a little bit more individual flair, which we've seen in the try from the Newton Stuart fullback. But I think it's a good win for Peebles. They welcomed Dwain Stuart back from Curry, who's dual registered, so he was able to play. So that's a good thing for Peebles. They've got strength in the hooker area now when they were struggling for front row a few weeks ago. We've got Ryan McConnell, Ryan Stewart, Greg Rayburn also came back from injury as well, so I'm due him another fiver for mentioning him, but he's an important player for Peebles, and I think coming back and staying injury free is going to be good, because they get a good win against the league leaders, and then they're welcoming back players. Greg mainly, Ryan might not be always available, but they're welcoming back players who can further strengthen them. So it's looking good for Peebles if they can get a bit of momentum, push up the league. Dumfries Saints are another team that are going quite well. So it's a competitive league. Those leagues always are, but it's another good win for Peoples.
It's nice to see clubs like Newton Stuart getting a little bit of limelight for a change as well, and really coming to the party with great players. Really impressed with their number 3, who was running all day at the People's Defence, and everyone was just going for it. It was a fantastic match, and of course Russell Morton, who we hadn't heard of this time last week, we certainly heard of him now with that try.
Well, I think that's what it is. That's what you do, isn't it, Stuart? It shines a little light on the grassroots of our game. If you think back years ago, we all can think of that footage of Stuart Hogg playing, sevens down at Berwick and playing for Hoyk, and it just gives players who donate all their time to volunteer to play for their club and represent their town, or to play with their friends, or to travel around and get different experiences. It gives them a little limelight. So the unfashionable teams like Newton Stuart, for example, who are maybe not steeped in all the glory of winning premierships and BT Cups over the last few years at HQ, but it gives them a chance to shine. And you picked out that try. It's one of the best tries we've probably seen so far this season, and it gives them a little bit of exposure, and he can show his friends, his family. He can, there's maybe clubs having a little look over the shoulder, going, right, who's this guy? Because that's what happens, and that's what you do. So it's really nice to see, and I'm sure Newton Stuart will be tuning in to see if they can try and get involved and maybe do a couple of their games as well. But no, it was good, and a couple of good players there. Stuart McFarlane was saying as well, an abundance of talent on both sides, so that's exactly what you do.
And from National 2 to National 3 in Berwick, getting another win, 33 points to 23, and you just feel with Berwick they're just beginning to find their feet now. Yeah,
I think we've said almost the same thing for the first few weeks, because it's early in the league campaign, but if you can get a couple of wins under your belt, it does give you momentum and a foothold in the league. It puts a little bit of doubt in the opposition's mind when they're going, we're going down to Scremerston, we're going to be playing Berwick, they're in good form, we don't know what their team's like because we've never seen what they play like. We've only got a bit of hearsay or you can see the results. So if you get some wins under your belt, it does give you a bit of momentum going into the rest of the campaign. And if you find yourself 5, 6, 7 games to go in the season, if you're up in the clutch of the 2-3 teams at the top, then it's all to play for, and you can. So it might be the bounce of a ball, but you kind of create your own luck in league campaigns.
East League then, and a very understrength Duns at the moment. They're not firing at all, but the good news is a lot of their injured players are hopefully going to be coming back for this weekend. But they went down at home to Portobello. In the derby in East League 2, Langham got the better of Hoytlandine, 29 points to nil on that one, and they remain undefeated in their big 150th year.
Yeah, big year for them, and as we say, they keep putting in performances. They've got a nice strong squad down there, and I think they'll be chuffed to bits to keep them to 0. I think that's always a good thing, is when you're playing a game of rugby, if you can get a good win, but if you can put a 0 on the opposition, it's always a big thing. And Langham are certainly making a marker in their league, and hopefully they've got something to celebrate at the end of the season to go along with their 150th year.
Well, in East League 3, we saw Earlston, who hadn't won this season. They went to Edinburgh Northern, who were unbeaten, and they actually won that one by 17 points to 15, and that was worth celebrating.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously we were down at Earlston at the Hawk a few weeks ago, and they were speaking about different injuries and lack of real commitment from some players in terms of just the nature of culture now, work, and what people have to commit to. And it's always nice when you're playing rugby if you can get a win on the road, and especially against a team that's unbeaten. So again, hopefully they can get some momentum. They've had a bad defeat against Galloway a couple of weeks ago in their derby, but to follow that up with a win against Edinburgh Northerns is good for them. So hopefully they can kind of get the numbers back, and people will be a bit encouraged by it and see the result and go, look, I want to be part of that, and they can welcome a few more players down there.
Well, Neil, you'll be delighted as Director of Rugby at Kelso to see Kelso Harlequins doing so well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think just when they first started getting back to playing rugby, they had a sort of tens tournament up at Melrose, and Kelso Quins were done really well in it. They beat Hoyk and Melrose in that, and that was just the tail end of last year's team, and I think that kind of gave them a little bit look into what was coming this season. I believe I've been around at the training just watching from afar, and they've got 25 guys there training. They've got a good nucleus of players at the moment that are sort of bonding together, and it's a thankless task sometimes for the coaches when things aren't going to plan at that level, and it's not like you can just bring guys in or shake a wind bus and they'll fall out. It is a yearly thing, and sometimes you have a bad year and so on. And right now some of the coaches that have been there for a few years have had a few years where it's been a little bit bare, and they've had to turf it out, just and get through a season at a time, a game at a time. But right now there's some great talent in there. They've got young Ryan Gibson, the centre, is a good player, Mitchell Lane, the back row, the tight head prop, Ashton Asante, his name is, he's a good player. There's a few guys in that squad. There's a few big guys as well, and sometimes, especially at Kelso, we've struggled for like line-out jumpers, second rows, and actually the Kelso Harlequins at the moment have got a couple of guys in there that could. Hopefully, they're not the cleverest, Stuart, and they want to be tradesmen and so on. That's a very blunt one to say, isn't it? But if they, joke aside, if they stay around and they get an apprenticeship and they go on to stay in the town, then we get the benefit of these guys, and hopefully we can help them when they come up. But if they go to university, it's very difficult to get any purchase out of them. But at the end of the day, they have to have as good a time as they can at Kelso Harlequins, because it's a great institution at Kelso, and it always has been.
Well, of course, you mentioned about some of the clubs have got an abundance of talent and plenty of numbers there. The flip side of that, obviously, we've seen recently Jed Thistle and Duns Colts having to amalgamate effectively in this part of the season anyway, just to get boys a game, and that's going to be a bit worrying.
It is worrying, Stu, but it's not new at that level either. It's not something that's just came out of nowhere. It's been going on a little while, but it's great to see. It's not that long ago Duns weren't playing at all. They had packed it in, and now in recent years they've picked up again, and they've got Berwickshire High School with Bert Grigg and the sort of setup they've got there. They're trying to produce players, and they do it quietly, successfully. It's not like they've got abundance in guys hitting it big, but they have got one or two that are making it through now, and guys like Patrick Anderson that came through these sort of systems early doors, right back to like say Tom Wilson, guys like that have done okay, like they've done well. There's a few others in there that you could pick out. So Duns, it's very important that Duns stay alive there, because it would be a real sad loss to Scottish rugby, and that's the whole country if Duns didn't keep going, because they have got players that come through their system. And to be fair to Duns, they're a really well run club. I work over in Duns, and Duns are a really well run club, and they make the most of what they do get, and these players often, the good players obviously go straight from Duns to a bigger club, and they live with that. They wish them well, they want to see them do well, and then the guys that want to play locally go on and play for Duns first team, and they're happy at the level they're at. I mean, they regularly say to me when I meet guys that are attached to the club, they don't really want to be promoted, because then it becomes a big travel issue, and it's maybe just they would rather do well at the level they're at all the time, rather than stretch the resources. And it's clever, and that's I give Duns a lot of credit. Like, and as for Jed Thistle, I mean, they were in the final of the Scottish Cup not so long ago, Stu. I mean, look at the players they produce. I mean, Kev Barry put a lot of work out there over the years, and they've had the benefit of that for the last 5-6 years. Some of the players that came through have been fantastic. So, I think it's got to just be a little bit of a blip for Jed Thistle, I would think, and they will come back stronger. Jed Thistle, again, similar to Kelso Quins, it's an institute for more than rugby. It's something that you always remember once you've been there.
Well, we're going to have a little break there, because a couple of young players we're going to put the spotlight on now. One of them is Ross Lile, who plays for Melrose, and he's been doing very, very well for Melrose Storm recently. Another one is a young man who is playing in the first 15 here at Poynder Park, and his name is Dwain Patterson. And a couple of weeks ago, he was talking to Andrew Fleming about his experience of playing for the Samurai Sevens, which for a youngster was a fantastic achievement.
No, really good experience. Yeah, enjoyed it. Got the call from Higgs to come up and play with them, so I was buzzing about that to get involved there. But no, it was just a really good experience working with coaches like Bruce Aitchison, and Harkey was down again tonight. Just the knowledge they have, and then obviously playing with boys like Gregor and Lewis Young was just a really good experience.
Have you played with those kind of boys before, or is this all quite new to you?
No, probably first time playing with players that calibre and that knowledge of especially the sevens game. So really took a lot out of that, learnt a lot from them boys.
In terms of yourself, you're just young, you must thrive off this kind of sevens environment?
Yeah, no, it's great, yeah. I love playing sevens. Us fast boys out in the backs, dance about, score the tries, no, I really enjoy it.
Started when I was about 5 at Melrose, and then just played all the way through high school, through primary school as well, and then went into the first last year. So
there's a lot of boys who kind of started off, people like Graham Dodds, and he came right through from the minis, from the Wasps all the way through, and presumably that's the pathway that you're looking at.
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly what you look at. So onwards and upwards, bigger things.
And I believe you get to train with the Southern Knights boys as well from time to time, and that's going to be a good thing, isn't it? I mean, it's sort of building confidence all the time, getting to know the boys that hopefully you'll be playing with in the future.
Yeah, definitely. That's what the goal is. That's the end goal, is to be progressing and get there at some point.
You've got a new coaching team, a lot of new boys, blend of youth and experience. Must be really looking forward to the season ahead.
Yeah, everyone's really looking forward to getting going, just getting into some shape and getting used to playing with each other. As I say, I've got a few new boys, the 2 McNeils from Hawick and a couple others from Hawick, but just getting to play together was it was good to go.
Well, Neil, experiences like that for a young man like Dwain Patterson, I mean, can't be underestimated.
No, Stu, I mean, it's something that he was lucky enough to experience, and I think he earned it. He had a really good couple of years, obviously with the COVID and that. He's worked really hard on the off season and the time that he's had to work on his cell. He's super fit, he keeps himself in great condition. He just run the Great Rough Run actually after playing a match for Kelso the day before. The guy is just phenomenal in that aspect. But rugby wise, he's working on his game all the time. He's not the biggest, so he's got that to contend with. However, that means, as I keep telling the likes of Dwain, that means nothing. There's players around the world play at the highest level at any size, and Dwain's got enough about him to do that. But what an opportunity he got that day, and he took it well. Well, it was 2 days at Edinburgh, and I'm sure in the future Samurai will come calling again, because he certainly put his best foot forward there. And when you're away with Samurai, it's not just about what you do on the pitch, it's how you behave off the pitch, and often that can mean more. You know, they're looking for guys that want to really improve and buy into the system and what Samurai's about, and you know, he's one of the guys that can do that. He's professional off the field. He has a laugh, and then he turns on, you know, to being serious, and he certainly that weekend at Edinburgh, he would have got a lot out of it. You know, playing with better players, obviously a big step up, but you know, as I say, he took it well. He did well that weekend.
And his claim to fame this season, he's got the only drop goal from the Premiership and the National One.
Yeah, and to be fair to him, it wasn't, you know, a straightforward drop goal.
It was a good one.
It was an absolute belter, and you know, he's, you know, that's the difference at the moment for me with Dwain. He's a guy that we trust. When he's on the park, he knows what we need, and at that point we were 12 points in front. You know, the game was getting a little bit, you know, more scrappy as it went, and Stirling were getting, you know, looking for that try. And if they had scored at that point, it would have gave us a really tight hang on. If if they came within a score, you know, you start to panic. But with him slotting that drop goal, it was game over, and that allowed us to see the game out, no problem. Even though they did get a 7-pointer right at the end, it made no difference. So, you know, his game management and that, he's playing out at 13, he could probably play anywhere in the back, so he's that type of player. But yeah, I mean, he's been kicking goals for fun this year, and that drop goal just, you know, highlighted what he's all about.
It's guys like Dwain that kind of keep me playing. You know, youth, it's a great thing, and he's just like a sponge. Everyone, you couldn't be getting coached by a better guy in Kev Otterson doing the backs there, because he's always asking Kev questions, and Kev loves it because he's got a wealth of knowledge obviously as well. So he's certainly in the right place to develop as a player, and he's got the right attitude as well, as do a lot of young kids that we're playing with at the moment at Kelso. They're all really wanting to progress, and mainly they want to get better. So that's the pleasing thing for us, and as for Dwain, you know, he's getting better and better every game he plays, and I just think we should stop talking about him because there were people wanting to get on the phone to him and take him away, so God knows.
Not writing off your career at all, because I'm sure your best years are still ahead of you, Bruce, but from so far what you've played at Heriots, at Hawick, at Border Reivers as well, what would you say were your highlights?
Oh, you could ask me earlier to think about that. Honestly, highlights, I was at Hawick for 10 years, and the highlight was just actually playing at Mansfield every Saturday, because I never lost that bug or the buzz, and it's actually the same here. And having the 18-month 2 years off is just, you know, first game of the season going up to Cartha, I was sitting in the bus, I was nervous, I was feeling sick, and I was like, this is why I do it, this is why I wake up on Sunday, roll out of bed, same again Monday, and just getting better on Tuesday, because I miss that feeling. And I'm actually I think I'm addicted to the pain, because the year and a half I had off, I was going to work on a Monday and I was fresh and I was ready to work, and my boss, what's going on here? I thought I was ill or something, but that's what I miss. And the year and a half off has gave me, you know, it's just made me more hungry for the game, and I managed to kind of look after myself without, you know, taking the bumps and whatnot. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it here at Kelso, enjoying playing with the boys and coaching as well. It's everything at the moment is going good. We just need to keep winning, and it'll just get better and better, hopefully.
And fair to say you played to the edge, don't you?
You could say that.
But that's what it's all about, isn't it?
I will say one thing.
Are you a wind-up merchant, Bruce, on the pitch? Would you agree with that?
To be honest, I'll tell you why I do it, right? On a Saturday, I'll pick out a couple of players that I think, right, okay, they're key men in that team, and I feel that I can sometimes get under their skin, especially like a hooker if he's thrown into the line. You just give him it, and I don't know why, but it does kind of. Everybody's human, and it gets them a wee bit. You just, you know, say, I'll get it when you throw it over the top or something like that. Likes a Borthwick and that. I'd rather him chase me about the park, try to punch me in the nose, as playing rugby. Do you know what I mean? And the same way all like Dodsey and, you know, all the players that I've played against. And if I can get to key men, hopefully they'll chase me about, as opposed to playing rugby and put them off the game even a wee bit. And I actually cringed watching the games after it, because my partner is terrible. And we were watching the game on Saturday, and I could hear myself on the right rest mic. I was like, oh my God, that's disgusting. But I'm not actually like that off the park. I've got a half-decent partner, but on the park it could be better.
But of course people are targeting you as well. They wind you up, and they succeed.
If you give it, you've got to take it. And you've got to be on the edges. It's partly, I think, having played for so long, the edge was slightly further away. You know, the laws have changed and you don't get away with what you used to, sort of thing. So I've probably found that slightly hard to adapt to be fair. I used to like a good scrap and getting studs all over you and stuff. Things have changed probably for the better, I suppose, but when you've played as long as me, you've just got to kind of wind it in a little bit and accept that these laws are here and they're here to stay, and that's how rugby's going to be from now on.
OK, we're going to start winding things down now, and that means we're having a look at the fixtures for this coming week, starting with Ayrshire Bulls against Southern Knights at Millbrae. I mean, what could be better than that?
Yeah, I think that's a nice big game in the Super Six, because both teams are at the top of the the top of the standings. You've got them, you've got Watsonians just clinging on to their tails just beneath them. So there's a lot still to play for the places for the final games, to see who's going to finish, really first, second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth in the Super Six. And this might be a little curtain raiser, a little eye opener into what it might be in a few weeks' time. But I'm sure they'll want to put down a marker and show them what they're all about. They've got good momentum on their side. They've obviously got a formidable force up front as well. So it's going to be a good game. And
Ayrshire Bulls coming into form now, they will not want to lose a third time to the Southern Knights. It's on their own patch as well. They've also seen Southern Knights with a few chinks in the armour. We've seen that exposed by Boroughmuir, we've seen it exposed by Heriots, but Southern Knights have always managed to get the win, and they've got a lot of good stuff riding with them, a lot of confidence within the camp as well, and I just think it's going to be a very intriguing contest, and as you say, a curtain raiser to what is surely going to be the final at Edinburgh at the Dam Stadium.
The one thing I will say about Ayr is in Ayrshire Bulls and the kind of club and the offsets, if you will, from it, they're trying hard to kind of differentiate between the club and the Super 6 semi-pro team, but they've always had a good culture, a good coaching setup, really intelligent coaches as well, over the last few years. So they're used to winning, they're used to knowing how to get back on the horse when they've been knocked off it. So they will know the little weaknesses that the Southern Knights have, and they will target them, but equally they'll be wanting to enforce themselves in the game as well and show what they've got to play, because that's rugby. You're not going to win by just honing in on the weaknesses and not showing your hand. So the Ayrshire Bulls will be looking to try and show theirs and put down a marker, and maybe a couple of mind games as well going into the business end of the season.
Oh, it's going to be fascinating on Friday night, that's for sure. Tomorrow night, Hawick against Glasgow Hawks in the Premiership. That's going to be our featured commentary on Saturday, and let's hope we do get a game on at Mansfield Park, because that's an intriguing one, with Glasgow Hawks winning last week and winning comfortably at home to Musselburgh.
Yeah, and I think Musselburgh are a difficult team to play. They've always been quite well set up, quite stubborn as a team, and Hawks have maybe kind of over the last few years been on a bit of a roller coaster in terms of their form, losing a lot of players and then having to kind of just restructure slightly. But Hawick will be looking to really try and get that momentum going, especially at Mansfield Park. Bruce has just alluded to what it feels like for the players to play at that kind of that institution of rugby in the Borders, but just Scottish rugby overall, the famous pictures of Mansfield Park. So going out there, they'll be looking to try and do it justice and hopefully prove me wrong as well, saying that they've got a team of some really experienced good players and some people who are a bit wet behind the lugs at that level. So hopefully they do prove me wrong and they can get a win against Hawks.
Selkirk and Jed Forest both away from home. Selkirk at GHA and Jed Forest go to Fullerton Park to take on Mar. We've seen a few over the years, some great tussles between those two.
Yeah, I think they're both really good games. Selkirk have struggled with players in the last few weeks. Obviously, the game called off for COVID last week, but they've had a lot of injuries to some key players. So they'll be looking to try and welcome these players back into the squad. I think Donald Nichols perhaps fit again. I think the players likes of that. I remember looking at the report from the Hawick game, and there was a raft of players to add to who was already missing. So hopefully if they can get a squad, when they get a fully fit squad, they could compete with most teams in Scottish rugby. But with key personnel missing, they're like any team, they're weak. So it's hopefully they can go on the road and get a good win. But the Jed Mar one it's a formidable task for Jed to go into that. You know, we talked about trying to keep the team at the bottom, Aberdeen Grammar, out of arm's length. You know, trying to keep them down. You know, to go to Mar, who are a team over the last few years have been one of the form teams in Scottish club rugby, is going to be a difficult place to go to try and pick up the win.
National 1, let's start with Kelso, away at Ayr. It's not going to be easy. What's your thoughts?
I think both teams will play well. That was a big nervy hand I got for Bruce McNeil. But I'm going to get my own back, because when he was saying he used to target key players, it was at this moment I realised I wasn't a key player for Peebles. A difficult game for Kelso, especially going away up to Milbrae. But the league table doesn't really lie in terms of where Kelso are as a team just now. You know, I said in front of Scott White and Nixon last week that I thought Curry would beat them, and I'm quite comfortable saying in front of Bruce and Neil that they could go up to Ayr and get beat. I don't think they will. I think Gala showed that they can compete up there. They just need to be able to control the game a bit better, and I think Gala showed us against Kelso that there is that element of Gala that can't really control and see a comfortable game out, or a competitive game. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kelso went up to Milbrae and got the win.
Right, well, as we've got the boys here, we'll get their thoughts on the match against Ayr, starting with Bruce.
It'll be difficult. It's always difficult up there. It's a very hostile place to go. But I think when our boys get scared and nervous, I think that's when we play our best. We went up to Carth, our first game of the season, previously going up there getting beat by 98-0, which you've mentioned a few times, Stuart.
It was 98-3.
Like
you did get a penalty.
That makes it all the better then. But there was an edge at training that week because the fear was there, and I've let the boys know on Tuesday night that has to be there going up there again, because if we don't have that fear going up there, it could be a long bus journey home. But we had a good session on Tuesday night. A few Hope and Truths talked about, you know, being maybe second to a lot of things against Stirling, and we won. And I can't actually remember, you know, asking the boys when was the last time that we were so down about winning as a club, sort of thing. They're like, well, never. Every win was celebrated like winning the World Cup, and after it, not one of them really was over the moon about that win against Stirling, and that tells me that they're not happy about the performance. And if we go up there and put a good performance in, I think we're in with a chance. And yeah, we're going up there as underdogs, but I quite like that, the fact that they've been undefeated or whatever, and we're going up there with nothing to lose. But I know one thing: the boys will leave absolutely nothing in the park, and that's all we can ask.
And who are you targeting this week?
Fraser Climo.
Fraser Climo had to be, wouldn't it? What a player! What a player!
That's
class. Yeah, I think he was the difference when Stirling played them up there. I think he scored 3 tries in quick successions, and that was a game gone just like that. So if I can get anywhere near him, I'll give him a wee cuddle.
Yeah, you're not very subtle about it, are you?
That's the point. The ref
Neil.
will give me a yellow anyway.
Neil, what about you? Your thoughts on Ayr?
Yeah, again, we know it's going to be tough here. Ayr are a different animal this year from what they've been in National 1 the last year or so since Super 6 came in. They're now turning their attention to getting their club team in order. You know, that was a big statement, Fraser Climo stepping down to play in that. The guy's phenomenal at this level, and there's no getting away from that. Everything goes through him, and you know, they are, with him in their team, they're a danger to anyone in this league, and possibly even the league above. He's that good at this level. However, he is one man, and we've got the whole of the Ayr team to worry about. But as Bruce says, we think we're mentally maybe in a better place for travelling nowadays at Kelso. I mean, we you know, it's been acknowledged by yourselves as well that we don't like to travel, but you know, I mentioned it last night myself regarding logistics and that, and you know, all 20 guys that get on that bus have to want to be on that bus. They have to want to be going to Milbrae, to where it's tough, to where it's got to be hard, and just because it's a pure challenge to get there and win. And if we, as I say, we're working on the culture, and that's one of the things we need to work on. So if we go to Ayr and we empty the tank and we do lose, we can get on the bus and enjoy a beer because we've given everything. But if we go to Ayr and we don't give it all and we come away with nothing, we've only got ourselves to blame. And that, you know, sounds simple, Stuart, because it is. And the boys are aware of that now. And you know, I'm confident if we do give it all, we'll get something positive from that game.
Well, we wish you all the best in that fixture, of course. And Dale, not just the The fixture between Ayr and Kelso, which is going to be raising eyebrows. There's one staring at me in the face at the moment, Biggar against Melrose at Hartree Mill. That's going to be a cracker.
Yeah, I think that is going to be a really, really good game. I think Biggar are also a team with a bit of a chip on their shoulder about the way that they were treated, during a unique situation in the world, but the way that they were treated. And I think probably they've got a good argument to have as well in the fact that they're maybe a bit hard done by. And Melrose are a team who are probably quite similar to Ayr, that they're now focusing on their club team. Like Melrose club team now has its own identity. It is now the club team again. And I think this is going to be a huge game in that league to see, where both teams are at. Hartree Mill's a horrible place to go, a really, really difficult place to play. And Biggar have a real good, we've said it before about most teams, but and Kelso trying to change it, but Biggar have a good culture. They've got a good network of people, they've got a good committee, good club environment, and they've got all the assets that they need to try and progress in the league. But Melrose will be wanting to try and put down a real market. I think it'd be a scalp if Melrose beat Biggar, if I'm being honest. But again, with a postponement last week, with Melrose having such a big win, do they get complacent, or Biggar maybe fresher, or are they worse off? You don't know. So, but all we know it's going to be a cracker there.
Boroughmuir, problems in the camp at the moment. They're losing at home by 40 points to Highland. They lost heavily at home to Melrose, and now they go on their travels, and they're at Netherdale against Gala, who are in reasonable form at the moment. Gala,
yeah, definitely. Again, picking up wins, and that's a game that Gala welcome. Bringing Boroughmuir to their home patch at this stage of the season, because it allows them to try and put in a performance, and I think they'd be targeting 5 points. I'd be surprised if there wasn't any other kind of mindset other than that, so that they can really try and climb up the table, get a good league position, and put a little bit of second thoughts in teams when they're going to be playing Gala for the rest of the season.
And into National 2, Peebles away at GHK, Berwick in National 3 away at Lasswade. That's going to be a tight one. Yeah,
Lasswade are really difficult. They've had a big windfall in terms of the setup that they've got there. They've got a great stand, they've got a lovely pitch, they've got a lovely place for people to play rugby, and I think it does attract good players there. When I was playing, it was, players were perhaps being pulled from Watsonians and Heriots to try and pull them up the leagues, but I think they've realised that's not sustainable, but it's a difficult place to play. Really, really good, well-run club.
And Jed Forrest will certainly tell you that it's a difficult place to play, particularly when the wind's blowing and the rain is going horizontal. That famous win from, about 10 years ago now, when you and Scott came to fame with that 60-metre penalty effort. But of course also Peebles at GHK unbeaten.
Yeah, it's another big one for Peebles if they want to do anything, maybe not as vital at this stage of the season, especially away from home, but they'll want to put in a performance and try, and if they're in the game at half time, they can cause the home team a few problems, cause GHK a few problems, and if you've got any aspirations of going up and getting promoted, then you need to beat the teams round about you, home or away. It's maybe more vital that you beat them at home, but GHK will have the same mindset. They'll look at Peebles as a challenger, so it's a difficult game for them, really difficult.
Duns, now they're away on the road to Haddington.
Haddington, it's a very hard hill just at the top right hand corner of the pitch of Haddington, so they've got a lot of legwork to do if they're going to be going into that corner. But Haddington, a team that's it's kind of flipped. It was part of the Border League for a while. I know you're not really looking for a history lesson on these clubs, but they were really, really competitive a few years ago, but just kind of fallen away. Stephen Ferguson, who was ex-Peebles coach and Biggar coach, he used to coach them for a bit as well. But Duns, we're just trying to. That's the sort of place that you want to go and pick up a win, because the kind of Haddington do flip flop in terms of their form. So it's certainly a winnable game for Duns.
Edinburgh University Medics are at home to Earlston, and the last trip last week to Edinburgh was a good one for Earlston. Can they do it again? Yeah,
they enjoyed the capital last week, so that I think they'll be looking to go for it again. We've said before, once you get that feeling of getting a win, you know what it feels like, you know what you need to do, you know the level that you need to reach to beat these teams, and they'll be wanting to go again and put the Medics to the sword and try and get another couple of wins. And I really do hope that they get the win, so that people in the area and people wanting to come and play rugby, or maybe not played rugby for a few years round about Earlston, can go, look, that's a club that I wouldn't mind being involved in, going down, training a couple of times a week, and getting a beer and a run about on a Saturday.
Well, hopefully not so many call-offs this week in the Tennent's East Reserve 1 and 2, and also in the Borders Semi-Junior League as well. The fixtures on your screen at the moment, but Hawick Force will be playing Stuart's Melville at home. Selkirk A and Jed Forest Day both away. In Division 2, Gala A, Kelso Sharks, Melrose Storm and Peebles Reds all getting home fixtures. And then we've got some crackers in the Borders Semi-Junior League, including the big one, Earlston High School Melrose Wasps against Peebles Colts, both unbeaten, and that's being taking place at the Green Yards at 3 o'clock. So some tasty fixtures about as well. But that's just about it for today. Our thanks to Neil Hinnigan, obviously Director of Rugby at Kelso, and the player coach Bruce McNeil, and of course Dale Clancy. And Dale will be joining me next week as we go to Scremiston. Our friends at Berwick, yes, we're taking the programme out of the country. We'll be visiting Berwick in England, and looking forward very much to that. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in 7 days' time. Bye-bye.